quick note. If you want to understand what really makes people succeed in German and how you can build a language to actually use it, join my free live workshop at bettergerman.info/workshop. Welcome to the Better German podcast. My name is Susi Blumel, and I will teach you German and everything around the language, the countries, and the culture. Hello, and welcome to this new episode of the Better German podcast. And in this episode, we're going to talk about practice, how much practice is necessary. And I'm going to give you some guidelines so for you to really estimate how much practice do you need, and also some ideas on how you can practice. Actually, the episode for this week was supposed to be how long does it take to learn German? It's recorded, it's done, and I was in the middle of the edit. And while I was editing it, I realized that I want to record another episode before this, which is this one, about practicing. Because the information I'm going to give on how long it takes to learn German, I'm going to give you an estimation of how many hours you can expect, depending on your individual talent or your learning speed. However, I'm still going to give you a rough estimation, but all of this is true or has a lot to do with practicing. So if you only ever learn theory, the numbers I'm going to give to you in the next episode will not hold true. So that's why I decided that we needed this episode first, and I needed to give you a few information about practicing. So roughly, these are ballpark numbers, okay? So roughly, you should have maybe 20% theory and 80% practice. So what does it mean? Let's say you're learning a couple of new words. So let's say you're going to learn a list of 20 new words. And maybe you're spending about 20 minutes to write them down in your book and to look up the meanings and figure out what exactly they mean, if it's not totally obvious. Maybe you spend a little time looking at a picture. So whatever theory you're learning, you do want to make sure that you really understand it and you learn it well. So, and then roughly, you could say if you spend 20 minutes doing that, you should spend about 80 minutes to practice those words. So what do we mean by practice? So the different things you could do for practicing would be to say the words loud or to repeat them. Like if you're doing a course with me, how we start is we have this word list and then we start practicing it relatively fast, and I will say them and you will say them after me. That's already practice. And we will maybe do this a couple of times, and you will do it until you have no problem to say that word. The next thing will usually be we will use this word in some way of a practical thing. We will make sentences or we make a conversation exercise. Usually we will make sentences with these words. And then a next thing is you're going to write examples for these words. So, and all this together will probably roughly be 80 minutes for these 20 minutes. And that will mean that you don't just have heard this word once, but you will actually be able to understand, not only understand the word, but also use it. It will come into your mind when you need it. Let's look at a course. For example, that's also one of the reasons why I decided I want to do this episode. I've just seen a couple of postings on social media, like 2, 3 that were almost the same thing from different people. And they said, okay, they have been doing German courses and they're at B1, which is a certain level. If you want to learn about the levels of German courses, I made an episode about that. But anyway, if the person is at B1, it means that they're at the third level. This person wrote, she's at that level, but she cannot speak because she's never been speaking and she's never practiced speaking. Unfortunately, that's a typical course. Very often when you go to school or when you take a language course, it will be like that. I'm not even going to go into the fact that the theory is probably not 100% understood, because I think there is way too much grammar and it's too complicated. So if they're doing the B1, they have probably done an A1 course and they have probably done an A2 course, part 1 and 2, and they're now in a B1 course. So they have done at least 3 courses. And a course typically has maybe 50 hours of teaching. So they have done at least 150 hours of lessons so far, and probably hardly any practical. Let's give them some credit and said maybe of these 150 hours, maybe 50 hours they actually practiced. So that means they've done maybe 100 hours of theory and 50 hours of practical in the course. So that, in my experience and in my calculation, would mean that they're about 350 hours short of exercises. And if they would do those 350 hours of practice, actually practice everything she or he learned there, they would probably be able to speak. Maybe you have had the thought, maybe I'm not good at German. Then I want to assure you that's not the point. That's not the problem. I'm going to show you what is the problem. And how I show you is I have actually put together a workshop. It's a free live workshop on Zoom. And in there, I'm going over what could make you think that. We'll cover what could go wrong, but I'm also going to show you how can it be done right. So go to bettergerman.info/workshop and sign up for the workshop, and I'll see you there. So let's take another example of practicing. Let's say you are in a course and you've gone through your lesson and you've had some words and you've had some grammar and so on. So what can you do in order to improve that? Let's say you were in a course and you've spent 2 hours that day in the German class. So first of all, as a ballpark, you should remember for those 2 hours of theory, you should have about 8 hours of practice. Maybe it's just 1.5 hours of theory because you practiced a little bit in there. So you should at least have 5 hours of practice. So that's one thing to consider. So you did 60 hours, and out of these 60 hours, 50 hours were theory. Then plan out to do those 250 hours practice of this particular thing you learned. And then you will be at the point where you have a chance to actually apply what you've learned. Of course, you also need to understand the theory, and that could be another thing. If you follow my podcast, I'll try to make it as easy as possible for you, and I'll try to help you with that. Of course, if you want to do a course where this whole thing is already in there, you can look at my courses. I have a beginner's course. You can also do individual lessons, but the principle is always the same. So you will get theory that is understandable, not too much theory, but you will really understand it, exactly the theory that you need, grammar on a need-to-know basis, and you will have lots and lots and lots of practice. And that's what happens to my students. They actually are able to speak. You will be able to start speaking way earlier than you would think. Good. Let's take another example. Let's say you're sitting down and you listen to a YouTube video about certain phrases that you can use. Let's say it's a 20-minute YouTube video with different phrases. So very good. It's 20 minutes of theory. Write them down. Maybe you need a little more because maybe you want to write them down and really make sure you get it. And then practice those phrases. You can practice them. You can practice them with a friend, make sentences, use them in sentences. Don't worry if the sentences are not perfect yet. If you've just started to learn German, you can even do mixed sentences. Like if you make a sentence with a word like lamp and you don't know enough German to make a complete German sentence, lamp in German is die Lampe, you can say something, the Lampe is very beautiful. Use it in sentences. Or touch things. If it's nouns, touch the things, say the word, point at them, write them up. So just practice those things. Do it with a friend, do it with a partner if you can. And then you can also write sentences, and you should, in order to practice them. So what's the conclusion? The rough estimate of a percentage is about 20 to 80. Generally, many courses probably give you more theory than you even need. However, whatever theory you're learning, as long as you make sure that you understand it and you then practice it enough, you will be fine. And you will be certainly doing much better than you have been doing so far. Is there such a thing as too much practice? No, I don't think you can ever have too much practice. How long is the ideal? How do you know that you really practice it enough? You know that you've practiced enough when you can use them. Like, for example, when you have a word and you're going like, okay, give me a second. I have heard this. Yes, I know what it means. Then you haven't practiced it enough. If you want to say that word and you have to go okay, what was the word again? What was it? Then you haven't practiced enough. So you know that you have practiced it enough when you can do it without taking a long time to think. Same thing with grammar. If you have a rule, you need to find examples for it. And you know that you have practiced enough when you can find examples easily and when you can use that rule easily. And as I said, roughly in my experience, 20% theory, 80% practice is a good percentage. Don't get discouraged when you think, okay, I've spent 150 hours learning German, but I can't speak yet. It's probably not because you're bad. It's probably just because you didn't practice enough. So make sure you understand your theory, put in the practice, and if you want a course where this is already in place, then you can look in my homepage, bettergerman.info. If you're looking for private lessons, you can make an appointment right there for a free introductory lesson. And I hope to see you in my next podcast. And as I said, this is going to be about how long does it take to learn German, so you know what to expect when you embark upon this journey. Here is a story from one of my students. She came to Austria because of love, and she started learning German, and she tried learning German, and she learned German with different people. She had private teachers and private tutors that tried to help her, and she worked hard, and she didn't speak German. Then she came to me. I worked with her, and she was not a difficult student, frankly. Not at all. She was one of the easiest students I've ever had. We didn't do private lessons. She was in one of my small group programs, and after 2 months she spoke German. That's her saying that, not me. Her name was Diana, and I'm not telling you this because I want to tell you how great of a teacher I am, but I'm telling this to you because what was wrong here was the method. It wasn't her, it wasn't the language. And most people, when they run into a problem, they think it's them or they think it's the language. And it's neither of them. Everyone can learn German, but you have to use the right method. So if you want to know what you can do to actually learn German, then join me in the free workshop, How to Actually Learn German. It's really a culmination of all the things that I'm using in my German programs and also in the podcast, by the way. Join me in the workshop. It's a live, free workshop with me. I'd love to see you there. It's on Zoom, and you can find out everything about it at bettergerman.info/workshop.